I am a daughter of the Shu family and also a wife of the Xie family. I was Xie Huaijin's wife for a lifetime, accompanying him as he rose from a fallen prince to the ruler of the ninefold heavens. On his deathbed, he held my hand, grief barely contained. Ayun, do you have any last wishes? I will make them come true for you. I struggled to sit up, signaled the palace attendants to bring 2 cups of wine, and softly asked, Your Majesty, you still owe me a nuptial cup of wine, do you remember? Xie Huaijin did not expect my final wish to be so simple. He drank the cup heartily, satisfied. I closed my eyes. Into that wine I had poured poison. I was Xie Huaijin's empress for his whole life, managing the harem, exterminating powerful ministers, accompanying him from obscurity to absolute power. Our fate began with deceit and ended with deceit, in that, it was complete. I was born into the Shu family of Yingju. My mother was the sole daughter of the wealthiest family in Jiangnan. Of all the nation's grain and riches, the whole shared 1 shi. Jiangnan alone held half a dou. My father was the current prime minister, wielding influence over court and country. After I was born I was granted the title of commandery princess, titled Suian, with the fief of Anzhou. The late emperor once intended to marry me to the crown prince, but my mother did not wish me to enter the imperial family, so she examined all the suitable young men in the capital and ultimately chose the Geng family's son. Geng Mo. The Geng family had served in officialdom for generations. At 14, Geng Mo hid his name and joined the army, starting from the lowest rank, bravely fighting enemies, and rose to become a guard general, a third-rank official. By the time he was only 20, I once secretly went to see him. His brows and eyes clear and bright, a straight high nose, lips ruddy, his silver-white armor flashing cold light, his smile carrying a touch of unruliness, both the sternness of the battlefield and the fervor of youth. I nodded in approval, and within 3 days the matchmakers came with a proposal. The 2 families exchanged marriage contracts, and the marriage was settled in the spring of the 26th year of Yuanfeng. My mother took me to Lingzhou Temple outside the city to offer incense and make a vow. On the way back to the capital, I rescued a small beggar, and my fate quietly began to turn. My father handed me an investigation report. In the 23rd year of Yuanfeng, Duke Mu plotted rebellion. The whole court was shaken, his entire household was executed, and only the legitimate son Shen Xingye was missing. When I learned his identity, I no longer wished to keep him and gave him a packet of silver. Go, I have never saved you, and you have never been to the Shu residence. He knelt and struck his head on the ground. I beg you, miss, take me in, the world is so vast, and I have no home. Then he took out a knife and ruined his entire face. The wounds were so deep the bone showed, beyond any hope of restoration. From that day on, the Shu residence gained an ugly servant called Ju. It was late autumn, the wedding date approaching, and I was selecting garments in the mansion. Several large chests of treasures sent from Jiangnan were a lifetime's treasure for commoners, but ordinary to me. Huan Kui came rushing in to report, breathing hard and unable to finish her sentence. Miss, you must go see. Outside the mansion. Outside the mansion. I was unperturbed, my gaze still on the dressing table as I picked a pearl hairpin and fastened it in my hair. Simple and elegant, set with a single southern pearl. Slow down, drink some water first. What's happening outside the mansion? Huan Kui guzzled a mouthful of water and patted her chest. Miss, a woman has come outside the mansion, claiming to be General Geng's concubine, and she brought a child and is kneeling. You should go see. I did not rise, smoothing my hair. Has anyone from the Geng family come? Where is Geng Mo now? A Jew stood outside the door and respectfully reported. After the court meeting dispersed today, His Majesty kept a few ministers in the study. Old Master and General Geng were among them, and no one from the Geng household was seen outside the residence. Then send someone to the Geng household and let them clean up their own mess. Yes. Half an hour later, a Jew reported. The Gengs sent 2 rough female servants to take the person away. I personally saw a carriage stop at the Geng's side gate, and Liu Meima, who stands by Madame Geng, welcomed the person in. Afterwards, rumors spread throughout the capital saying I was jealous. Damn it, a bunch of lunatics. When father returned from court he asked what I intended to do. I smiled slightly. performed the formal kowtow and said, "A foolish commoner is ignorant. When those above act, those below will follow. I beg father to allow me to break the engagement with the Gengs." Father nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, "A daughter is born weak by nature. She must never drown in so-called feelings. Rest assured, for a mere concubine to dare come to my doorstep and humiliate my daughter, I've seen all I need to see of this Gang Mo, that palace guard general, within 3 days." It was reported that several censorate officials had jointly submitted a memorial accusing Gang Mo of knowing about the matter and not reporting it, of allowing his subordinates to flout the law, and of staining the honor of respectable families' daughters. They charged him with poor discipline and with deceiving the emperor, and earnestly requested that His Majesty punish him severely. The emperor issued an edict temporarily removing Weiwei General Gang Mo from office and ordering him to stay at home and reflect for 3 years. Rumors throughout the capital then vanished without a trace too. With the marriage gone, the most anxious person at home was my mother. She began again to carefully select among the sons of the capital's powerful families. Before she could reach a decision, the Lantern Festival Palace banquet arrived. I wore plain white, my makeup light, but my robe was made of this year's finest Su embroidery from Jiangnan, painstakingly stitched by dozens of embroiderers over half a year. I wore no gold or jade, only a single pearl bracelet, each pearl full and round, gleaming under the lantern light. I accompanied my father and mother to the palace banquet, amidst songs and dances. The emperor sat at the head, dressed in a dragon robe, raising his cup in good spirits to acknowledge the civil and military officials, who rose in turn to salute. After setting down his cup, the emperor summoned Prince Duan, Prince Ning, and Prince Yun, and looked kindly at me. "Suan, these sons of mine are about your age. Do you have anyone in your heart?" I hastily rose, speaking with a fearful tone, "Your Majesty, each of the princes is accomplished in talent and learning, their bearing and manners are as bright as the sun and moon. How could a humble girl like me be worthy of any of them?" The emperor laughed heartily. "My sons are not worthy of such praise from Suan. I think Prince Ning is quite good. Suan, would you be willing to marry into Prince Ning's household?" I lowered my head, hiding the gravity in my eyes, and tried to refuse again politely. "Prince Ning's character is noble, but this girl once had an engagement broken off, I'm afraid." "What?" Suan looks down on my son, Shu Aiqing. "What do you think?" The emperor's smile faded, his tone growing colder. "Prince Ning is gentle in temperament and learned, truly a fine match. It was my daughter's foolishness." Father stood and replied respectfully, "Then it's settled. Later I will have the Ministry of Rites choose an auspicious day to complete their marriage." "Yes, thank you, Your Majesty." "Father," 3 voices sounded at once. Back home, my father summoned me to his study. "Your mother and I never wished for you to marry into the royal family. We refused the crown prince back then and arranged the match with the Gang family for you. But we never expected." I had already regained my composure. "Father, my maternal grandfather has only my mother as a daughter, and you and mother have only me. Eventually the Yang family of Jiangnan will be passed to me. For that reason alone the emperor will not spare our family. Besides, your pupils and old friends are spread throughout the court." I furrowed my brow slightly at this point. "Do you think His Majesty intends to change the heir? The crown prince is both legitimate and the eldest. His Majesty is even more deeply attached to the late empress. He only wants a whetstone to make the crown prince's blade sharper. If the crown prince wins, what will happen to the Shu family?" A chill ran through me. Cold spread over my whole body. "Therefore, we must fight." Father looked calm and took a sip of tea. The sun blazed like fire, dressed in a phoenix coronet and embroidered bridal robes. Accompanied by 10 miles of red wedding banners, I married into Prince Ning's mansion. Prince Ning, Xie Huaijin, was the late emperor's 3rd son. His mother was the legitimate daughter of Duke Mu. After the Duke Mu treason case, she fell ill from grief and died. Back then Xie Huaijin was 17. The late emperor did not punish him, but most officials in court changed with the wind. For 4 years he shut himself away with books and ignored state affairs. Only today, when I married him, Did Prince Ning's residence again fill with honored guests and ministers gather on the wedding night? Xie Huaijin laid his cards on the table with me. He admitted he already had a true love in his heart and could not give me love, but as long as he succeeded, the position of Empress would certainly be mine. He had also seen through His Majesty's intentions, so he was not a fool. However, the position of Empress was not what I sought. When everything was settled, all I wanted was a divorce document. I did not want to be anyone's appendage. I only wished for the wide world so I could roam freely. He agreed. Your Highness, may I ask who the one you love is? If you like her, bring her into the residence. Rest assured, I guarantee she will live peacefully here. I was the first to extend goodwill. Xie Huaijin smiled, his brow and eyes gentle. His disguise was truly convincing. Anyone who saw him would think him a scholar who finds comfort in mountains and rivers. If I had not just seen him reveal his sharpness, I might also have been fooled by him. No need, Miss Xu, she's at the frontier. Oh, then forget it. 3 months after I married Xie Huaijin, his rivalry with the crown prince openly erupted. I ran errands for him all over the capital, cultivated connections with highborn ladies, and had boxes of silver shipped from Jiangnan to the city to greasing palms. His Majesty also spoke highly of him in court, and for a time the Prince Ning's household enjoyed unrivaled prestige until the flood disaster in Anzhou broke out. Xie Huaijin labored for months and personally went to Anzhou to investigate. The flooding was not a natural calamity but a man-made one. When Minister of Works Jin Yuan supervised the construction of Anzhou's dikes in the 16th year of Yuanfeng, he embezzled 200,000 taels of silver, skimped on materials, and ultimately brought devastation on the people. Xie Huaijin entered the palace to pay his respects and reported the truth. The emperor was furious and ordered a search of the Jin household. Jin Yuan was sentenced to death, and his family and children were all exiled to Lingnan. Xie Huaijin, however, boldly submitted a remonstrance, saying that the 20,000 taels of silver and 1,000 taels of gold seized from the Jin household did not match the amount of embezzled funds, and he begged the emperor to order a thorough investigation to recover the stolen money and severely punish the main culprits. The emperor was enraged and punished him with 3 months' house arrest. That night, Xie Huaijin knocked on my door, and I ushered him in. He turned and held me, exhausted all over. A Yun, he will never let me take that position. You help me. We all knew that the Minister of Works was the Crown Prince's close confidant. Perhaps in His Majesty's eyes, only the Crown Prince truly counted as a son. The other princes were merely collateral branches of the bloodline. What do you intend to do? I will go to the frontier. Holding military power is the real source of confidence. His tone was firm, leaving no room for doubt. That was true. Although Duke Mu had passed away, he had commanded the border forces for nearly 20 years, and many of the frontier commanders still remembered him fondly. How long will it take? You can't disappear in Kyoto for long. I couldn't read his mind. Was it military power that gave him confidence, or the confidence to rebel? I will have someone impersonate me. I don't know when I'll return. Ayun, you must cooperate with him and perform this role well. He looked at me, and for the first time I noticed his eyes were like a bottomless abyss, swallowing all light and weighing on the heart. Okay, I nodded numbly. No one expected that this departure would last 5 years. The next day I saw Xie Huaijin again. The likeness was simply uncanny. Height, build, features, voice, everything matched Xie Huaijin exactly. This could not have been prepared overnight. It was premeditated. I don't know when he began plotting, only that a chill ran through me and an inexplicable panic took hold. This stand-in never gave his name, and I never asked. I simply called him Ajin. In public, Ajin was always smiling and pleasant, his every gesture without fault. In private he was taciturn, and especially in front of me he fixed me with a pair of dark, steady eyes. We would sit in silence and the air seemed to freeze. I found time to return to the Shu residence and told my father about it. He said little, only advising at the end. Take care of yourself. I understood that he had known for some time and had quietly acquiesced to all of it. 6 months after Xie Huaijin left, I went out to check the accounts. The shop was 2 streets away from Prince Ning's residence. I took only Huan Kui with me. at the hour of shun, as the sun sank and cooking smoke curled, Huan Kui and I were kidnapped on our way home. When I woke, my eyes were blindfolded, my hands and feet bound, my mouth gagged, and only my ears could hear the sound of water dripping on rock, echoing repeatedly in the silence. Time seemed stretched indefinitely. I could not move in the darkness, and fear and confusion clung to me like shadows. After 86,400 TikToks, I was rescued. A jinn untied the black cloth over my eyes, his expression anxious and full of worry, and helped me out of the dark, cramped cave. Looking up, the sun hung high. It was already noon. To save me, my father and a jinn had given up large interests in the court and lost several crucial official positions. A jinn said this was the crown prince's return gift. 3 days later, a jinn told me that Huansue had been killed, her body abandoned in the forest, and that the mountains were full of tigers, making it impossible to find her again. I stood there dazed, silent, and then fell gravely ill. With a jinn by my side, my body and mind gradually recovered. He would seek out delicacies and exquisite fabrics and jewelry from far-off places, as well as all kinds of strange and interesting storybooks. Whenever I turned, I could always see him standing quietly there, his brows gentle, his eyes as if full of 1,000 words. Faintly, I seemed to see another person who had once stood silently behind me in the same way. Those days were the happiest since my marriage. A jinn remained taciturn, while I chattered like a little bird, talking non-stop each day. His responses were brief but especially powerful. I said I wanted to see spring in Jiangnan and the boundless grasslands of Yingzhou. When I asked if he liked them, he only smiled without speaking. When His Majesty heard that I was seriously ill, he sent 2 maids to the princely mansion to care for me. A jinn and I had to live together more often than not. Even after I was fully recovered, the maids did not leave. His Majesty bluntly said that Xie Huaijin and I had been married for 2 years without offspring and urged us to try harder to ensure the royal line. Because of this, a jinn and I had to play the part of lovers whenever we lived together. Looking at his slightly resigned profile, I felt a secret delight. The flickering candlelight on the window screen lit my slightly flushed cheeks. Xie Huaijin and Ajin often corresponded by letter. The frontier was far from the capital, and communication was difficult. Usually I would write one letter and Ajin would write one, and the letters were all delivered to me by Ajin. There was nothing momentous in the letters, mostly descriptions of frontier scenery, inquiries about health, and other trivial everyday matters. The letters were stacked up one after another and I casually kept them in a box, just as I had, in a daze, grown accustomed to this life. Xie Huaijin wrote to say he was coming back. This happened to be New Year's Day in the 33rd year of Yuanfeng. Under the brilliant fireworks filling the sky, I turned and saw Ajin in the shadows. In the autumn of the 32nd year of Yuanfeng, the late emperor fell gravely ill and could not handle state affairs. Matters of the realm were entrusted to the crown prince. On the 10th day of the 6th month in the 33rd year of Yuanfeng, Xie Huaijin led 30,000 Wuan troops back to the capital and entered the palace alone. The next day, the former emperor died, and before he passed he issued 2 edicts. The first declared that the crown prince was lacking in virtue and unfit to be heir, so the succession would be changed to the third prince, Prince Ning, praising Prince Ning as benevolent, filial, gentle, and respectful. He bestowed the imperial seals and made him crown prince, and urged the other princes to be united and harmonious to soothe his heart. The second was a self-reproach edict that overturned the case against the Duke of Mu for treason. On the 6th day of the 10th month in the 33rd year of Yuanfeng, the new emperor ascended the throne, changed the era name to Jinghe, and granted a general amnesty. In February, Ajin escorted me back to the Shu residence and left without delay. I watched his retreating figure and felt an unexplainable sadness and panic rise within me. I could not help but call out, "Ajin, no, that's not right. Aju, where are you going?" He turned, lifted his hand and removed the human skin mask, revealing a face full of scars. His gaze was resolute, but his smile was bitter. "Miss, there is something I must do." Having said this, he turned and left. The world no longer contained Ajin. 4 months later, public gossip was widespread. all praising the Mu household for its family of loyal martyrs and saying heaven had had mercy, for the legitimate son still lived. The new emperor treated this cousin very well, bestowed the former princely residence on him, and ordered him to inherit his ancestor's position, granting a different surname and infeffing him as prince, thus becoming Prince Mu, Shenxingye. When I heard this, I finally felt at ease. Convinced that everything would be over, I wanted to go to Jiangnan, where there are small bridges and flowing water, with grass growing and orioles singing. Compared to the capital, I preferred such scenery. The day after the enthronement ceremony, Xie Huaijin sent for me to enter the palace. He wore the dragon robe, sitting high on the throne, his gaze like a torch, all beings and the realm already under his control. When he saw me arrive, he hurried forward to help me up. Ayun, no need for formalities. It had been nearly 6 years since I last saw him. The face was familiar, yet it felt strange to me. Your Majesty, etiquette must not be neglected. I freed my hand from his and performed the grand kowtow with proper respect. Xie Huaijin took my hand, led me toward a raised seat, pressed me to sit beside him, and said, Ayun, will you be my empress? There was no force in that question to refuse. When Xie Huaijin returned to the capital with his troops, the messages along the way had been intercepted by people my father sent, and the capital's Zhuqiu gate was opened by the Shu family to welcome the Wuan army in. In these 6 years, if not for my father's maneuvering in court, his path to the throne would not have gone so smoothly. Now my father had risen to the position of chief minister, with no higher rank to grant. The other young members of the Shu family had enjoyed unrivaled prestige in the capital for nearly half a year, everyone fawning over them. By rights, he should not have needed me to be empress. Why, Your Majesty promised me. I suppressed my inner thoughts and asked as calmly as I could. Xie Huaijin's eyes were full of complexities I could not read. Ayun, with you here, I can be at ease, and Minister Shu can be at ease too. Father already intends to retire honorably. If only my father retired, the rest of the Shu family would no longer be a concern. Ayun, I do not doubt Minister Shu, and I will treat the Shu family well. I only want you to be empress, for 3 years, just 3 years. Xie Huaijin cut me off, holding my hand. Ayun, will you agree? What could I do? I could not pull my hand away, nor disobey the emperor's will. Xie Huaijin immediately arranged palace attendants and took me to the cunning palace. I did not know what he truly intended, though full of doubts. I still held hope for 3 years later. I never imagined that from that moment on, I would never leave this palace for the rest of my life. The history's record, on the 6th day of the 3rd month in the 1st year of Jinghe, the Shu family had a daughter, upright, gentle, virtuous, modest and prudent. She was established as empress, the first wife of the Jiaoming emperor. After the new emperor Xie Huaijin ascended, the harem was quiet. Aside from me, there was only Consort Chen. Consort Chen entered the palace in the 2nd month after I was invested as empress. She was the very beloved person Xie Huaijin had mentioned, surnamed Bai, given name Xianshuang. Her father had originally been the vice-general to the Duke of Mu. After the duke's death, he commanded the 400,000-strong Wuan army and without hesitation supported Xie Huaijin, and was thus ennobled as Duke of Dingguo. Xie Huaijin and Consort Chen had also been childhood sweethearts. The day after Consort Chen entered the palace, she came to pay her respects to me. Xie Huaijin came with her, and they brought a child, Ayun. This is the child of me and Azian. He is 4 this year. I want him recorded under your name. Tell everyone he is yours. Xie Huaijin's eyes were smiling, as if consulting me. The legitimacy of a birth would be secured, the position of eldest son taken, but I didn't care. It was fine either way. The child had clearly been coached. Though he obediently called out mother, his face betrayed reluctance. Consort Chen stood at the side, both delighted and resentful. Her handkerchief nearly worked to rags. At first, because the child was always near, Consort Chen would often come sit in cunning palace when she had nothing to do. I didn't mind what she thought. I was simply glad. If she didn't come, the vast palace was so quiet you could hear a pin drop, and at night I would startle, thinking I had returned to that cave. Later she realized I was soft and easy to manipulate. So she frequently took the child back to Zhongsue Palace and stopped coming. Xie Huijin said nothing and tacitly accepted it. Only on the 15th of that month he came to my palace, held me and murmured in my ear, "Ayun, you are the empress." He was reminding me to be a proper empress. The next day I had the child brought back and punished Consort Chen with a month of confinement. In her heart I had first taken her husband, and now her son. Whenever she saw me there were always sarcastic remarks. It didn't matter whether good or bad, the palace needed some life. For 2 years Consort Chen enjoyed the emperor's exclusive favor, though her rank after entering the palace was that of a consort. Her treatment equaled that of an empress. People in the palace always shifted with the wind, outwardly respectful, yet their gossip slipped over the high walls of Cunning Palace and into my ears. Matters of state involved both rights and military affairs. In the second year of Jinghe, during the royal silkworm ceremony, Xie Huijin used my illness as an excuse to take Consort Chen away. Suddenly my presence as empress in the inner court fell to zero. From then I knew Xie Huijin had begun to act. Within a month the imperial physicians reported that Consort Chen was pregnant. I followed custom and bestowed jewels and silk garments, but 3 days later she lost the child, a bowl of abortifacient. The maid who prepared the medicine said I had given her 100 taels of silver to swap out Consort Chen's tonic and promised to send her out of the palace to reunite with her family if the deed succeeded. Consort Chen stormed into Cunning Palace, face full of grief and hair disheveled. Slapped me, then fainted limply into Xie Huijin's arms. When there was no one around, looking at the pity on Xie Huijin's face, I blurted, "Was there really a child?" Xie Huijin set Consort Chen on a chair, approached and stroked my face. "Ayun, believe yourself." His gesture intimate and his words soft, but I felt plunged into an ice cavern. I was subjected to intermittent confinement. Xie Huijin left the choice to me. Jiangnan really was far away. I poisoned myself, a cup of frozen soul wine left me bedridden for a month, leaving a chronic illness. From then on I could not tolerate any cold and childbearing would be difficult. The imperial physician said it was fortunate I was discovered in time, otherwise my meridians would have frozen beyond remedy. I laughed. Could it have been discovered in time by chance? This was all a scheme. On the 4th day after I fainted, all the evidence was clearly laid out on Xie Huijin's desk. He was furious and ordered Consort Chen executed. As for the duke's daughter, for her failures in educating her, out of consideration for her meritorious service her posts were stripped and she was to retire home for reflection. He regained military power without bloodshed. I went to see Consort Chen one last time, stood outside the small dark cell and heard her call Jingij again and again, mumbling about the child and the father, talking in circles and making no sense. Through the gap in the window I looked at her for the last time, tear-streaked face, dazed expression, almost mad, no longer the bright, bewitching beauty she had been at first. Foolish girl, to the end she was still thinking of her lover. After Consort Chen's death, I was left alone in the palace. Sometimes I had nightmares and would wake up terrified, unable to sleep the rest of the night. Sitting up until dawn, Xie Huijin knew of this and so stayed each night in Cunning Palace, leaning against his broad, warm chest. I felt an odd sort of reassurance. The palace was too quiet, so I began regularly summoning ministers' wives and families to the court to chat with me. Members of the imperial clan need not attend. Xie Huijin still couldn't let go of the late emperor's words Tongdi Tongshin and even gritted his teeth over them. That day I had called in 3 or 5 ladies again. The daughter of the Minister of Rights played a peeper piece, and it was indeed fine. I knew very well what those young women and the families behind them were thinking. Having failed the selection, they would try another route, hoping for a chance encounter with Xie Huijin, to put on a good show and win entry to the palace. But what did that have to do with me? Each person should sweep the snow from their own doorstep and not worry about frost on another's tiles. I praised her lavishly and immediately rewarded her with a bundle of rouge and powders and silks and satins. The Minister of Rights' wife smiled from ear to ear. The wife of the Deputy Minister of Ceremonies couldn't bear it and said, "My niece does play the peeper well, but Madame Geng's peeper is uniquely supreme. Last time my wife had the honor of hearing her once. Oh, It was truly like hearing immortal music, ears briefly enlightened. The deputy minister's household had no daughter of suitable age. He and the minister of rights were at odds in political views and had always looked upon the other with displeasure. Madame Gang, who is that? A woman stepped out gracefully from below, her figure willowy and her steps light. Her peeper skill was indeed several times more exquisite than Miss Liu's, worthy of being called a national master. Still, I gave the same reward. No one had come here in vain. Afterward, rumors spread among the people that Her Majesty the Empress couldn't forget her former fiancé at lunch. Xie Huaijin told me about it like a dinner table joke. I was completely baffled, at a loss what led to it, and then what happened. Seeing my bewildered face, Xie Huaijin looked even more pleased. He stood up and ladled me a bowl of soup. That Madame Gang is Gang Mo's concubine. Concubine? What right does she have to enter the palace? Gang Mo, who? Oh, my former fiancé. When my maternal grandfather was alive, Gang Mo once served under his command, and my grandfather held him in high regard. Previously Gang Mo helped me greatly. He exchanged military merits for an imperial commission, and that lady was thus able to enter the palace. He paused, then continued, that lady is the same one who once knelt at your family's gate. I see. What is her name? Xie Huaijin also looked puzzled, but Grand Steward Wang stepped forward to reply, Your Highness, Lady Gang's original family name is Lin, and her given name is Yang. That matter passed for me just like that, but the world is hard to predict. Sometimes the person you care least about ends up helping you the most. The next day, a major event occurred in the imperial court. The left vice minister of war was demoted, and his entire family was to be exiled to Danju in Hainan. Danju lies in the far south, with a humid climate and a closed, backward environment. With this departure, I fear there may never be a return. The wife of the left vice minister of war and the wife of the junior minister of the court of imperial sacrifices are intimate friends. It was she who suggested bringing Lin Yang into the palace, and while the left vice minister of war appears friendly with the junior minister of the court of imperial sacrifices on the surface, in secret he is aligned with the Minister of Rights. At first it was only the left Vice Minister of War's wife who, in private, spoke up for Lin Yang, feeling that I, the Empress, had acted unjustly. Overthinking it, whoever plays, it's all the same, just for a bit of fun to listen to. Third year of Jinghe. Spring equinox. Mother entered the palace and told me father plans to retire and return to our hometown. Father has always worried about me and doesn't want to leave me alone in the capital, but the Shu family's influence at court kept growing, and Xie Huaijin did indeed fulfill his promise to treat the Shu family generously. But after the matter of the Duke of Dinghua, father realized he could not delay any longer and had to retire from public life. I held my mother and said softly, Don't worry. Your daughter will take good care of herself. You and father must also look after your health. There's no need to worry about me. Mother held me tight, tears streaming down her face. Father and mother will first go to Jiangnan, then detour back to Yingju in the 7th month. Xie Huaijin finally granted father's request to retire from service. I felt a secret happiness for my father in my heart. In August, father and mother set out for Jiangnan. On the 10th day of August, a guard rode back to the capital at full speed to report. Minister Shu and his wife encountered river bandits on their way home. Their boat sank, none survived, and the bodies have all been recovered ashore. After hearing Xie Huaijin's account, I felt the world spin, my breathing quickened, and I was as if drowning. I clutched Xie Huaijin's hand tightly. The next second, I fainted. When I woke again, half a month had already passed. I'd had a high fever for 3 days. And despite the imperial physician's many treatments, I never woke. The Ministry of Rights and the Court of Imperial Sacrifices jointly submitted a memorial, proposing that preparations be made early. Xie Huaijin flew into a rage and reprimanded several officials who had submitted the memorial. The former court's inner palace fell silent with fear. Everyone felt threatened. When I woke, Xie Huaijin was sitting at the bedside, gripping my hand tightly and calling my name over and over. Ayun, Ayun. I mustered all my strength to move my fingers. Anyun, you're awake. Quick, summon the imperial physician. Have the empress treated. He cried out sternly, then turned to look at me, his eyes full of the joy of something lost. and found I squeezed his robe hard. Your Majesty, father, mother, kill them. Xie Huaijin hastily comforted me in a low voice. Anyun, rest assured, everyone has been arrested and is being held in the palace. When you are fully recovered, you will personally deal with them. Also, he looked troubled. Anyun, with the heat and your delayed waking, Minister Shu and Madam Shu have already been buried. I have posthumously titled Minister Shu Wenjing Duke and Madam Shu Madam of Chang'an. Commandery, be at ease. After I finished listening, my hands went limp, and I fainted again the next day. I forced myself upright and, supported by palace attendants, walked step by step into the clan court. I gripped my sword and drove its tip into one bandit after another. Warm blood splattered across my face and hands. Awakening from a great dream, I was completely clear-headed. Xie Huaijin reached out and caught my weakened body. I buried myself deeply in his arms, breathing in the soft, mellow ambergris scent on him, tears streaming down. This was the first time I had cried since my parents' accident. Xie Huaijin held me tightly, comforting me again and again. I'm still here. I will always be here. Ayun, do not be afraid. What of Jiangnan? What of Yingju? Father is gone. Mother is not here. In this vast world, the only place I truly know is this imperial palace. Xie Huaijin and I began trying to be a real married couple. That night I jolted awake from a nightmare again. As usual, he patted my back and mumbled, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." I clutched his robe and looked at his suddenly opened eyes. The haze in them quickly cleared. Xie Huaijin, a jinn, we. Before I could finish, he rolled over and pressed me beneath him, kissing my brow lightly. I washed his hands and cooked his soup. He held the brush and painted my brows long. I ground ink and arranged plain paper for him. He played the qin for me, performing qing and shong. We embroidered interlaced branches and vowed a bond for 3 lifetimes. Of course, we did not take it to heart. On the 21st day of the 9th month in the 4th year of Jinghe, I became pregnant. Today, among the families of officials who came to pay respects at court, I saw Lin Yang again. Since that last incident, she had not entered the palace for a long time. She stood at the back of the crowd, smiling, and knelt with the others. I was with child and could not speak 2 sentences without feeling weary. Seeing this, the others rose and took their leave one by one. I was about to go rest in the rear hall when a palace attendant reported, "Your Majesty, Lady Gang requests an audience." I thought for a moment and decided to see her. Lin Yang had come to apologize for the previous matter and had brought a conciliatory gift, an undershirt she had embroidered with her own hands. Her action was quite improper, but looking into her pleading eyes, I suddenly realized she had something to say. I took her to my bedchamber and dismissed the attendants. As Lin Yang helped me undress the cumbersome garments, she leaned close and whispered in my ear, "Your Majesty, I once saw your personal maid in front of the Shu residence. Yesterday I saw her again on the street, and I watched with my own eyes as she entered the Prince Mu's residence. Huansue, is she the girl with a round face and big eyes, with a jade hairpin stuck in her hair?" I asked. "Yes, I have seen her before and would not mistake her. In the 20th year of Yuanfeng, Zhuzhu suffered a great drought, officials were corrupt, bandits ran rampant. It was Lord Shu serving as Imperial Commissioner who saved Zhuzhu and also saved my family. I cannot forget it." Lin Yang stepped back 2 paces, knelt and bowed, and at the same time raised her voice. "The Empress is wise and righteous. I am deeply grateful." I could not easily believe Lin Yang's words, so I called Maid Liu into the palace. Maid Liu had accompanied my mother as a handmaiden, had no parents, and never married. In the first year after I married, my mother had bought a courtyard on the outskirts of the capital for her to live out her days in peace. I quietly said to Maid Liu, "That girl Huansue used to have dirty hands and feet. If I had discovered it then, I left her at the original Ning Prince's residence. These past few days I've been thinking of the past. Could you secretly go take a look for me? Don't let her know. We were mistress and maid once. There's still some sentiment." Maid Liu agreed, taking my hand and saying, "Miss, don't worry, pregnancy brings many worries. You must take good care of yourself." A few days later, the nanny went into the palace and told me that she had waited by the Wang residence gate and seen Huansue The other party seemed to be doing well and told me not to worry, not to worry. I only felt an enormous absurdity enveloping me, as if a thick fog lay ahead. In the 5th year of Jinghe, in August, I gave birth to a prince. Xie Huaijin held the child, overjoyed, and named him Yunxi, Xie Yunxi. She means brightness, prosperity, hope. After I gave birth, the first selection of concubines in the Jinghe years began. The Minister of Right's daughter, the niece of the magistrate of Shangzhou, the young lady from the Tongju provincial administration family, and the only daughter of the citygate captain, Yun Tian. She was, as her name suggested, smiling as sweet as candy, only 15. Originally Xie Huaijin intended to pass on her. After all, a citygate captain is only 6th rank, but I said this girl had a pleasant face and we seemed to have a good connection, so she was kept among all the concubines in the palace. I treated Yun Tian the best. She did not receive the emperor's favor, and she was simple-minded. Strange, fanciful notions popped up in her head like bubbles. It was obvious her family dote on her. That was fine. As more people gathered in the palace, it became livelier. Liu Nianhe, the Minister of Right's daughter, had the best background, the highest rank, and was the most favored. She was granted the formal 3rd-rank title of Gu. Miss Liu was the one in the whole palace who liked Xie Huaijin the most. Who knows what infatuation potions Xie Huaijin had poured on her. Her heart and eyes were full of him, her affection nearly spilling out of her eyes. A girl just opening to love could not bear for her beloved to have other attachments, even if her beloved was the emperor. Daily provocations, breaking palace rules, flaunting that Xie Huaijin had given her some exclusive gift today. Xie Huaijin once joked, Jiu Liu is still young, our Yun should teach her more. Do I have nothing better to do? Miss Liu committed the gravest mistake. She should never have set her sights on the crown prince. She had heard from somewhere that the crown prince Xie Yuntang was not my biological son, so she went to get close to Yuntang and even directly told Xie Huaijin that the crown prince and she were very compatible, that their interactions felt like those of a mother and her own son. How could a person as shrewd as the Minister of Rights raise such a stupid and silly daughter? I can't figure it out no matter how I think about it. Is this the power of love, or has she been hexed with a spell? 2 days later, Miss Liu was demoted by Xie Huaijin from her position for disrespecting the queen, to a regular 6th-rank official, Baolin. Even the Minister of Rights was rebuked in court. Liu Baolin only then settled down. This inner palace was like this. It ground one young maiden after another until they became ghosts. At the start of the selection, Xie Huaijin once told me, "Ah Yun, you are my only wife," with consort Liu Jiu as a cautionary example. The concubines in the palace all reigned in their restless ambitions. I remained the emperor's most favored empress until I discovered that Yun's siren, Yun Tian, was secretly involved with a guard, intending to defile the harem's order. I invited Lady Yun into the palace and handed her the letter from Yun Tian, brimming with a young girl's feelings. Madame Yun turned deathly pale with fright. I said gently, "Madam, since Yun's sister entered the palace, I have treated her as my own sister. This letter is known only to you, me, and Yun Tian. Do you understand?" Madame Yun wept with gratitude. Hurriedly kneeling and striking a solid, reverent kowtow, I sat on the high phoenix throne, looking down, then shifted my tone. "However, I have a small favor I'd like to ask Lord Yun to help with. In the spring of the 28th year of Yuan Feng, at dusk a carriage left the capital's Xuanwu gate. I asked Madam to help me inquire who it was that warned Lord Yun back then. By that time they were already about to close the city gates. It was understandable that no one investigated while the crown prince was alive. But now that Xie Huaijin had already ascended the throne, it was a bit strange for Yun Yifang, the city gate commander, to still be able to sit comfortably in his post. The next day, Madame Yun sent me word. It was the former prince of Ning, now His Majesty, saying he wanted to go out of the city for a stroll together with Madame. After saying that, she cast a timid look at me. After all, few people knew about my disappearance back then. The Yun family members were probably still harboring doubts. I forced my trembling body steady, burned the letter, and waved my hand to signal Madame Yun to step back. "Huan Sui, a Jin, and we are all despicable liars. It was I who spoiled Yun Tian. It was I who had the guards deliver those lovesick booklets to Yun Tian. It was I who told Yun Tian that matters she couldn't speak aloud could be written on paper to entrust her feelings. The inner palace is lonely. Those who are willing take the bait. What about me? Am I also a fish caught by someone else? 9. Xie Huaijin traveled far to the frontier, and I forced down the fear in my heart. A Jew turned and left, and I drew back the hand I was about to extend. After my parents passed away, I exhausted all the cowardice of this lifetime. I am Shu Yun, daughter of the Shu family. At the Mid-Autumn family banquet, I saw a Jew again. He has never liked going out and always skips banquets whenever he can. He wore a ferocious demon mask on his face, completely out of tune with the atmosphere of the banquet. I quietly followed him and walked to a secluded, abandoned palace. Come out. His voice was the same, unhurried and steady. When I stepped out from the shadow in the corner, he reached up and removed his mask, revealing a face covered in scars. Miss, I saw Nurse Liu, and I know you went to the Yun family, so I came today. I'll tell you everything. In the hazy moonlight, he smiled ferociously, as if he had never taken off the mask. He said that in the case of Duke Mu's death, the late emperor was the principal criminal. My father was the executioner, and that he had indeed purposely approached me. Huan Kui was his agent. He said that my marriage to Geng Mo was also sabotaged by him, that Lin Yang was someone he had recruited, that the kidnapping was his doing, and that he stood outside the cave, quietly watching all night as I fumbled and struggled. He said that during the 4 years we lived in the same room he lay on the study couch sleepless every night, and that I, who fell in love with him, had been pitifully foolish. Finally, he said that my parents were killed by him, and that it was all for the sake of revenge. I stood there in a daze, staring blankly at him. He slowly approached, reaching out to touch the pearl hairpin on my head, the one he gave me all those years ago. Miss, I suddenly drew the dagger from my sleeve and plunged it hard into his chest, fixing him with a deadly stare, wishing I could devour his flesh and drink his blood. Gradually, I could no longer see his face. He reached out both hands, one grasping the dagger, the other wiping the tear tracks from my face, and breathed faintly in my ear. Miss, don't cry, Aju doesn't want to. I was dazed, heard nothing, only vaguely saw a bright yellow figure rush over, snatch the dagger from my hand, scoop me up in his arms and carry me back to Cunning Palace. Shenxingye didn't die. He was fortunate and was brought back to life. I am still the Empress, the wife of Xie Huaijin. That night's incident became a taboo. Besides the three of us, no one else knew. That day, Xie Huaijin was teaching Elevenor to read, and I was writing. Your Majesty, when we first married, I said I wanted to go see the world. What were you thinking then? I really wanted to know the answer to that question. Xie Huaijin smiled, waved his hand to signal the palace maid to take Xie away, and only then spoke. Ah Yun, the world does not consist only of Jiangnan and Yingju. What you yearn for is freedom with security. Do you know how much money it costs to travel the world? Carriages, maids, guards, inns, or do you intend to go alone, like those scholars who carry books and roam, eating in the wind and sleeping in the dew? I had no reply. Yun, when I first met you, though you wore white, every piece you had on was exquisitely expensive. You were a lady raised in a nest of wealth and privilege. Without the support of money and power, you would only wither day by day. Yun, stay by my side. Stay in this imperial palace. This is the place in all the world that suits you best. Back then, I still couldn't read the unspoken words in Xie Huaijin's eyes. I met Shenxingye for the last time in this life. He volunteered to garrison the border. Once he left, barring any unforeseen events, he would not return to the capital in this life. He specially submitted a memorial, requesting an audience with the palace. I consented. He stood in the hall while I sat high on the phoenix seat. The place was the same, but the people had changed. After a long while, he finally spoke in a low voice. Miss, on this journey I will first go to Jiangnan, then pass through Yingju, and finally head to the frontier. I will look upon some of the scenery on your behalf. After speaking, he strode out of Cunning Palace, watching his departing figure. This time I felt nothing but disgust. By the time Huansue entered the palace, we were both already grey-haired. Huansue handed me a letter, saying it was left by Shenxingye. with the sole instruction that it be delivered to me after his death. What a pity. I was planning to handle it myself. I took the letter. It contained only 3 lines. Miss, I wonder if you are well. Miss, I wonder if you have guessed that. There was another hand behind the events of those years. Miss, a Jew likes you. Disgusting, him, and Xie Huaijin as well. He is the executioner. Xie Huaijin consented to everything that happened in the long years. Countless times I was disappointed in myself, wishing I could instantly kill Xie Huaijin and end it all, but the crown prince was young, the imperial clan incompetent, and what had the people done to deserve this? I must live and be a good empress. Father is gone, the Shu family needs me, and so does my Xie. The crown prince's position must be his. Xie Huaijin was not a good person, yet he was a good emperor. Shen Xingye was the same. There is no denying they protected countless people's peaceful lives. Just as father once said, the sea's calm and the river's clear. I served as empress in this deep palace for 25 years, in perfect harmony with Xie Huaijin, loving each other for a lifetime. My Xie is already the crown prince, virtuous and upright, with great talent and vision. He will take over this empire smoothly. Over the years, with my support, the Shu clan has also grown deep-rooted and flourishing. Many of its young scions now come and go in the court, holding important posts, until I fell gravely ill, with no medicine to cure me. A cup of poison. Let's go together. Xie Huaijin, the realm has long been at peace, and the state has successors. It's time you repaid your debt to me. The history records state, Empress Duanjin was gentle, kind, refined, and both virtuous and talented. Emperor Zhaoming loved her deeply. The emperor and empress were profoundly devoted to each other. When the empress passed away, the emperor was so grief-stricken he wished to die and soon followed her, living in the same chamber and sleeping in the same quilt in life and sharing the same grave in death.